Yo, what's going on? I just wanted to take this video and talk about the carnivore diet and the reasons behind it works, or what the theories are at the least. This video is going to be very choppy. I don't have all my ducks in a row, and I just kind of want to talk and get this video out before it's too late. So it's going to take kind of one point and chop it up. We'll see how it goes. I still don't know how to talk to a camera. This is all very awkward for me. Just chilling outside at sunrise here, so just finding time to actually do this. So let's try and get into it here. So the main theory behind the carnivore diet is that plants are not actually good to eat. This theory kind of comes from the fact that animals are able to run away as their primary defense, whereas these plants can't, so they have to develop other defenses. So these would be any sort of chemical defenses, so that if an animal were to come around and eat them, they would get some sort of distress or possibly poisoned, and then they would be deterred from eating the plant again. So, because obviously plants don't want to be eaten or destroyed either. They're trying to live just like any other living thing, but they don't have the same type of life that we have. Like, we have legs, so we can run away from all our predators, whereas plants are literally stuck in the ground. So they got to find some other way to make sure that their genes get passed on. So yeah, they have a lot of these chemicals that if they get ingested into, let's say, us or our stomachs, they're going to cause that either indigestion or some sort of just side effect to deter you from eating it. And us as humans, we've been eating animals primarily for the last 2 million years or whatever. So we haven't developed the defenses against these plant chemicals in order to digest them for optimal health. Whereas if you look at some other animals, such as like sheep and cows and other animals like that, cows have 7 stomachs in order to digest and deal with all the chemicals from all the plants they're eating. And I think sheep and lambs, they have certain acids in their mouth that will help break down and digest, or break down those chemicals so they aren't as dangerous when they hit the stomach. So we haven't developed those defenses because we were primarily meat eaters, and we just chased and hunted, and then we didn't really use plants as our main source of nutrition and sustenance. We just used it as, oh, there's plants or there's a fruit, I'm hungry, I'm going to go eat it, as opposed to, oh, that's all I'm eating, that's all I need. So we got the most of our nutrients from animals, whether it's from cows or whatever else we could find just roaming around, bison and stuff like that. So that's kind of the basic idea of why plants aren't as good as we think they are, and why this carnivore diet is so effective. Another point to this is that plants have their own chemical structure, and that differ from the animal chemical structure. So if you take the argument that you are what you eat, then you want to eat other chemical animal compounds as opposed to plant compounds, because they're just more closely related to how our cells are made up. So it should help us take in those nutrients better and help us become more of what we're eating. So if we're just eating plants all the time, we're not becoming more human, we're becoming more plant, which is not. You should be eating whatever is closest related to you. By the way, I'm getting most of this information from the Carnivore Code by Dr. Paul Saladino. He's a great resource. I'll put his picture of his book up here. And yeah, just been going through, and that's when a lot of this is coming from. So I wanted to give the disclaimer and credit to him, as well as any other just site and video I've watched. But he's one of the main ones. I bought his book, and it's been really good. Next, we have the idea that these phytonutrients in plants are really healthy and considered antioxidants, and they get rid of free radicals and all this other stuff, which is fair because that is kind of what they do. but they also have secondary side effects that we don't really hear about. So the one big one is sulforaphane, which is in broccoli and all these other green vegetables. And it's been, praised as this great antioxidant. But if you actually look at the interventional studies, they show that it actually causes DNA damage in our cells. So it activates the NRF2 pathway, which is the antioxidant pathway. So it'll help get rid of all those free radicals and reduce inflammation. But because it causes other damage, it will actually create more inflammation afterwards. So you might get like the desired effect, or the desired effect immediately, but you're gonna have long-term effects down the road, especially because it does affect your liver, and if it's causing damage to your DNA, which is something you really want to make sure you have intact as you get older. So that's just one of the, you just got to look at the side effects, right? You wouldn't take chemotherapy when you're healthy. You're using it to kill cells that are killing you. And so the idea is that you kind of want to have the plants do the same thing. It's using the plants as medicine as opposed to a constant intake of food, if that makes sense. So if you're taking in broccoli for whatever, say sulforaphane, to help reduce the specific type of inflammation, that's okay. But if you're constantly taking in broccoli every day and constantly stressing your body just for that one desired effect, it's not worth it in the long run. So that's the main idea. And so the best way to get this anti-inflammatory effect and to activate this NRF2 pathway is through environmental stimulus, because they'll activate the pathway without having that negative side effect. So these would include like exercise or getting out in the cold, getting out in the heat, the sun. I'm also grounding. I'm also doing the anti-inflammatory, touching my feet to the ground. And these are the stimulus that is going to provide that activation of the pathway, get rid of all those, or not get rid of all the free radicals without causing that external damage or like secondary damage to our cells and our body. So yeah, the environment is going to be your antioxidants, and your plants are going to be your medicine when necessary. So with that all being said, it means that your environment and your lifestyle is going to have a bigger effect on your health than the food you ingest. So if you're just sitting around doing nothing, you're smoking, you're always stressed out, you're not happy, you have no connections with other human beings, that's probably going to negatively affect your health way more than what type of food you are eating. And I think that's really important, because people think that we are only the food that we eat. But I really think that that's incorrect. I think that we are so much more than that. There's so much more to health than just what we take in or what we physically feel or physically can touch and eat and shove down our throats. And we take in electrons from the light, from the earth, from the sun, right? So I think there's so much more than just what we can see. And saying that nutrition is the only thing that matters, and I think is very limited in our beliefs and what we are actually capable of. Just want to talk about what type of research is going on with nutritional studies. A lot of it is epidemiology, which is pretty much observational studies. So you'll get two groups of people or however many groups of people, and you go out and survey them, and they tell you what type of diet they're eating, how they're eating it, or what they do with their lives, and then you come back and measure the data and see what type of negative effects they experience. Did they experience death? Did they get heart disease? Blah, 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 all that stuff. And, a lot of those studies have shown that people who eat more red meat, especially in America, are having higher incidence of, coronary heart disease, diabetes, and all those other horrible modern diseases that you hear about. And so then obviously red meat gets demonized as the problem. It's these people who eat red meat are the ones that are unhealthy, and the people that are eating all these healthy plant foods are not having these same diseases, or the rate is so much lower. And it's a very biased type of argument, because those people who are eating plant foods are also generally really trying to look after their health. They have this unhealthy user or healthy user bias, because they're taking all the steps necessary to take care of themselves. They're not just eating plant foods because they think it's healthy. They are going out and exercising. They're watching what they're eating, how much they're eating. They're trying to not be stressed. Like, those people are the ones that actually care about their health. And then if we go to the other side, in this red meat demonized side, whereas people in, especially say America, where all these studies were done, people are eating hamburgers and they're going to fast food places. They don't really care about their health. They're eating, drinking a full 1 liter bottle of like Coca-Cola once a day, and throwing in their fries, and just with all this salt and fat, and everything's deep fried. And like, these are the people that are eating red meat to kind of rebel against the good nutrition that we've been told. And they could also be smoking. They're not exercising. And so I think that's where a lot of this demonization of red meat comes from, because it's not about the meat that's doing it. It's these unhealthy lifestyle factors. And doing these studies in a way that you're just asking people questions and saying how much they eat and doing this, and then not taking into account all these other factors that are more important than simply just eating one particular thing, I think that's where the real issue with all these nutrition studies is, because it's so hard to do actual interventional studies. To sit, say 100 people down, you give 50 of them one diet, 50 of them another diet, and then have them stick to it for, a year. Like, how do you lock somebody? You have to almost lock somebody in a room, 100 people in a room. Like, you lock them in prison, you only feed them this food, and then only feed the other group this other food, and then you follow them. And even then, like, 1 year isn't really that long. Like, you want to find out how long these 10-year studies are to really find out what's going on. And like, no one's going to sign up for that. Would you do it? Like, you'd live in a prison. And it just wouldn't be, I think, so it's really hard to say what is actually going to work. But just want that to be aware when you're looking at all these nutritional studies and saying like, oh, we do this because this is what this study says, but it's not an A equals B causation correlation. There's so much going on that we need to keep in mind. One of the chemicals that plants make is oxalate acid. This is something that gets created in photosynthesis so the plants can create other minerals for their survival. And it has no purpose in humans at all. We straight up, if we ingest it, we just excrete it. And one of the main dangers of it is that when you get high enough content of oxalate acid and it combines together, it starts to become needle-shaped and will start tearing up the insides of a animal's body. And so imagine just trying to piss out needles is kind of the idea. And I think 75% of kidney stones come from this calcium oxalate. So it's having too much of this photosynthesis, like nutrient creating molecule for plants in our blood, is what's causing a lot of kidney stones. So definitely sounds like something that should be avoided. Also, some of these plant compounds will affect the absorption of essential nutrients that humans need. So like oxalates will affect how we absorb calcium and magnesium because they like to bond to it. And so they'll kind of like tear it down so we can't use it. And also the animal foods they're just way more bioavailable in general. So eating plant foods is not the most effective way to take in your micronutrients, especially when you have them in your animal products to begin with. So, and that's another thing too, is that people talk about, oh, you're not eating vegetables, how are you going to get all your micronutrients, and aren't you going to get scurvy and all this stuff? And if we just talk about the scurvy for a second, is that if you had vitamin C is what prevents you from getting scurvy. But the the amount of vitamin C that you actually need to prevent that is so low. It's like 10 micrograms, and you can pretty much get that from whatever, a pound of beef. So if you're eating, or half a pound of beef, I think it is. If you're eating half a pound of beef every day, which if you're on a carnivore diet, you absolutely are, or some type of other food in that amount of quantity, you're actually not going to get scurvy. Not to mention, like, your glucose receptors are this, like, glucose and vitamin C share the same receptors. So if you're not eating glucose, if you're not taking in any carbs, you have way more opportunity for vitamin C to be consumed and actually become bioavailable and used. So that's don't worry about getting scurvy if you're on this diet. There's been so many people, like thousands of people have been doing it, and none of them have gotten scurvy because of it. So it's not the plants that are preventing us from getting it. You can still get those micronutrients from animal foods. Alright, I'm going to stop this video here for right now. I have a little bit more information I want to go over, so I'll put that in the next video. I do want to end this video saying I am not a nutritionist, and to not take my advice or not take this as advice at all. This is just information that I found, and I'm putting it in a video, and it is in my scattered brain, just trying to puke it out into a video in some form, as I have no idea what I'm doing. But I think it's important information. I think it's kind of neat, and I just wanted to keep trying to get people to think about these new things and try cool diets or whatever you want to do. So that's where we're going with this. I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you on the next one.